Hey Facebook friends and YouTube, this video will be about freedom. This topic is really important. Mainly my own thoughts about it is that we need to let people be free to do what they want for the most part. I mean, it's good to help people or try and help people, but we should not, for the most part, interfere with their free will, because that's when it gets into psycho crazy, controlling, over the top stuff. So it's important as far as in relationships to not be a control freak and to give people freedom. You know, if they're an adult, you should, no adult ultimately should try and tell another adult what to do. We can give advice loosely, but we shouldn't be like, this is what you're going to do, and that's what you're going to do. So, because that's like being a dictator, and nobody likes that. So the Bible actually has a lot to say about freedom. Galatians 5:1, for freedom Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. Galatians is where Paul talks a lot about the law, and he's talking to Jews, and he's trying to say, you're free from the law. But he was specifically talking about all of the extra laws, he wasn't saying you're free from the law to love people, obviously, because that's always a law and it's always important. But he was talking about all the other extra laws, like the dietary laws. They had some kind of silly laws in the Old Testament, like you can't wear a fabric made out of two, like a piece of cloth made out of two fabrics, stuff like that. So there are a lot of side laws that God had originally for the nation of Israel, and then a lot of those kind of got taken away with the new covenant. So now it's pretty much just, love God and love people. So God made it a lot more simple for us. Wasn't that nice? But yeah, so here Paul is saying, you are free. Do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. The law kind of put people into slavery in a way. So that's what Paul's saying there. Galatians 5:13, you are called to freedom, brothers, only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. So he's saying, you are free now that you're not necessarily under the law, because Jesus fulfilled the law and met the righteous requirements of the law through his death and his sacrifice, being a perfect sacrifice. But he says, just because you're free, don't use it as an opportunity for the flesh. That doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want to do now. You still have to live by a certain code of ethics, certain morals and standards, which in our modern society has kind of gone out the window. And people don't really evaluate a whole lot now if what they're doing is godly behavior, or if God would approve. It's because the fear of the Lord is kind of diminished in our modern culture. Anyways, another verse about freedom. 2 Corinthians 3:17, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. That's one of my favorite verses. And then I would say conversely, where there is no freedom, where there's control, that is where Satan is, because Satan obviously is diametrically opposed to the Holy Spirit and to God. So where God's Spirit is, there's freedom. Where there's control, there is Satan. So, that's why it's really important to not try and control others. You can make suggestions. You can ask for what you want. You can make requests. But beyond that, you should not try and control someone else. And I noticed this, in psychological terms, there's the addict, and then there's something now called the codependent. And psychologists realized that codependency is just as much as a problem as the addict having an addiction to drugs or alcohol or whatever. But the reason is because the codependent, their addiction is control. They can't help but control another person. And then the addict, in rebellion to that control, then they turn to the substance, so yeah. Gotta watch out for controlling people. And there was a really good video on Facebook where it was a father, and he said, friction creates resistance. And that really made me think. So, when we create friction with our children or our spouse or anyone, it will create resistance. And the more that you try and control someone, generally the more they will resist you, because nobody likes to be controlled. And because people can detect that there's a bad spirit there when someone's trying to control them, so that's why they're resistant. They're like, because either there was a good sermon by Tony Campolo about love versus power. Like, either you have power over people or you love people. Like, you can't have both. So when you're trying to control people, you're trying to have power over them, and then you're not acting lovingly, because you want to be their dictator and have control, but that's not love. 1 Peter 2:16, live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants for God. Yes. So, just because we're free now in the new covenant doesn't mean we can just do whatever we want. So I pray that bless you all, and may you all have a great day. God loves you. Bye.